How economic sanctions affect global trade. Introduction. Economic sanctions are a powerful tool used by governments and international organizations to influence the behavior of a nation or entity. These measures are typically imposed in response to actions deemed harmful to international peace, security, or human rights, such as military aggression, terrorism, or the violation of international agreements. Economic sanctions can target a wide range of economic activities, including trade, finance, and investment. While sanctions are designed to pressure governments into altering their behavior, their effects are often complex, especially on global trade. This paper explores the mechanisms through which economic sanctions affect global trade, examining their direct and indirect consequences, the sectors most impacted, and the broader implications for international relations and economic stability. Number 1. Defining economic sanctions. Economic sanctions are policy measures that restrict or prohibit trade, financial transactions, or other forms of economic exchange with a particular country or entity. Sanctions can take various forms, such as trade restrictions, asset freezes, travel bans, and restrictions on foreign investments or loans. They can target specific individuals, companies, industries, or entire countries. The goal of sanctions is typically to coerce governments into altering policies or actions without resorting to military intervention. Application. The United States imposed comprehensive sanctions on Iran in 2018, targeting its energy, financial, and shipping sectors in an attempt to curb the country's nuclear program. Number 2. The mechanisms of sanctions. Sanctions affect global trade primarily through their impact on supply chains, trade flows, and financial systems. By restricting access to markets, capital, or essential goods, sanctions disrupt normal trade relationships. Businesses and governments in sanctioned countries often face higher costs, loss of access to international markets, and limited financial transactions. Non-sanctioned countries, in turn, may face indirect effects such as reduced demand for exports or disruptions in global supply chains. Application. When the US imposed sanctions on Russia in 2014, following the annexation of Crimea, Russia's access to international finance and technology markets was severely limited, impacting its ability to trade efficiently. Number 3. Impact on bilateral trade relations. One of the most direct consequences of sanctions is the disruption of bilateral trade relations between the sanctioning country and the targeted nation. For the sanctioned country, this often means the loss of access to important trading partners, which can lead to reduced export revenues, higher prices for goods, and a decline in overall economic output. On the other hand, businesses in sanctioning countries may lose lucrative markets or face restriction on their ability to export goods and services to the sanctioned nation. Application. Sanctions on Cuba have significantly limited the country's ability to trade with the United States, which historically was one of its largest trading partners. Number 4. Diversion of trade flows. Countries under sanctions may seek to circumvent these restrictions by seeking alternative trading partners, leading to the redirection of trade flows. For example, sanctioned nations may turn to countries with less stringent regulations or to informal or black market channels. This trade diversion can alter global trade patterns, particularly in sectors where sanctions are most heavily imposed. Application. After European Union sanctions on Russia, Russia increased its trade with China seeking alternative markets for its oil and gas exports. Number 5. Effects on multinational corporations. Multinational corporations, MNCs, that operate in both the sanctioning and sanctioned countries face considerable risks when sanctions are imposed. These companies may be forced to halt operations or pull out of markets that are subject to sanctions, resulting in financial losses and reputational damage. In some cases, MNCs might attempt to comply with sanctions while finding ways to continue limited operations in sanctioned regions, which can lead to complicated legal and logistical challenges. Application: US companies such as Apple and Microsoft had to stop selling their products in Russia after US sanctions were imposed, impacting their sales and operations in the region. Number 6. Impact on global supply chains. Sanctions can severely disrupt global supply chains, particularly when key raw materials or intermediate goods are sourced from sanctioned countries. These disruptions can lead to delays, higher production costs, and shortages of goods in the global market. Industries such as electronics, automotive, and energy are particularly vulnerable to disruptions in supply chains caused by sanctions. Application: the sanctions imposed on Iran affected the global supply of oil, leading to fluctuations in global oil prices and impacting countries that rely on Iranian exports for energy. Number 7. The effect of financial sanctions. Financial sanctions, such as blocking access to international banking systems, freezing assets, or restricting access to global capital markets, can have a profound impact on a country's ability to engage in trade. Without access to international financial systems, businesses and governments in sanctioned countries may struggle to make payments, secure financing, or facilitate international transactions, all of which are essential for global trade. Application: when North Korea was cut off from the global banking system by international sanctions, it became increasingly difficult for a country to engage in international trade, as transactions could not be processed through global financial networks. Number 8. Secondary sanctions impact on third-party countries. Secondary sanctions are a form of indirect sanction imposed on countries or entities that engage in business or trade with a sanctioned country. These sanctions are designed to penalize third-party countries or businesses that continue to trade with a targeted nation, creating additional economic pressure. As a result, even countries that are not directly involved in the sanctions may experience negative consequences, such as the loss of trade or investment opportunities. Application: the US imposed secondary sanctions on companies that did business with Iran, affecting European and Asian companies that had previously traded with Iran, causing them to withdraw from the market to avoid penalties. Conclusion: economic sanctions have a significant impact on global trade, creating both direct and indirect effects that can ripple across industries, countries, and financial systems. While sanctions may achieve certain political and strategic goals, they also present challenges, including trade disruptions, financial losses, and unintended consequences for third-party nations. The success of sanctions in influencing a nation's behavior depends on various factors, including the type of sanctions, the resilience of the targeted economy, and the ability of the global community to enforce them effectively.